Welcome to the HR Champions podcast with me, Phil Scott of HR Recruit, where I bring you leaders from the HR community. In our podcast, we'll be discussing their careers today, their passion for HR, and the challenges they've faced along the way. Today, I'm delighted to introduce Professor Christine Bamford, Programme Director at the Stepping Up Programme and also CEO of Women's Coin. Christine has received an award for the Stepping Up Programme in recognition of diversity, and I thought today I'd invite Christine onto the show to discuss all about it. So, Christine, I'm going to pass it over to you. If you'd just like to give an introduction to who you are to the listeners, that'd be fantastic.
Thank you very much, Phil. That's a really great introduction. Hi, everyone who's listening. I'm, as they say, Professor Christine Bamford. We've already given the introduction, but probably to say that I've had quite a lengthy career in HR, but my passion has been more towards the organisation development and leadership development rather than just the process side.
So I'm going to ask you to start at the beginning, the very beginning. How did you first get into HR?
Well, I was in, I have to say, my early 20s, and I saw a job advertised saying staff manager, and I thought, I can do that. It's for a big retail outlet that was setting up a greenfield site. So I applied and I got the job. And it was, I have to say, quite a baptism of fire. We were recruiting 300 retail staff and training them, inducting, and then I ran the whole of the staff management function, as well as, I have to say, the kitchen and catering services. And the one thing I found about it is great being in retail because you could do everything. There was a manual for everything. So even though I wasn't a trained professional, I soon picked it up. And so this was really, really learning on the job, I have to say. It was quite a challenge. Working with unions, obviously, there were a number of social issues and it was a new town. So I very quickly learned how to manage the difficulties and also see it from a customer viewpoint. In our job description, we had to spend so many hours on the shop floor. And this was the first time I really understood about going back to grassroots, looking at it from a different perspective, not just staff, but also the customers who you serve.
Okay.
So that's how I got into HR.
And what is it you like about working in HR?
I really love the people element. Now, I know a lot of people say that, and of course you do have to make some quite hard decisions along the way, but people are the heart of the business, and actually they make the business, whether it's successful or whether it continues to progress and succeed or whether it just moves into downturn. The people really are the most important asset.
What have been your major achievements to date?
Can I give you three that I would say are life-changing? The one that always sticks in my mind was undertaking an assignment for World Health in the Middle East. Of course, I hadn't actually done this before. I'm working in a different culture. And I was advising the Minister of Health for the pay reward system and introducing new technical assistance in the nursing establishments right across the United Arab Emirates. A whole different variety, different culture, a mix of nationals and non-nationals. And I also were training the nurse leaders. So this was, totally out of my comfort zone, I have to say. The wheezy part about it was I had a blue UN passport, which was quite an experience in itself. But being in a different culture and being a minority in a different culture, for me, was a seminal point in my life. And I learned how to manage different nationalities and cultures and produce recommendations, HR recommendations that I felt would fit the culture of the country, really. And, suddenly to be catapulted into, and I was running the press there every day, working directly to the Minister of Health and the Federal Director of Nursing. It was an extremely challenging but rewarding process, an understanding, of course, faith and how important faith is and the importance of women working. For me, the outcome was a call by the President's wife for women to join the nursing profession. And that was previously unheard of. That was a huge challenge. And that, if you like, has fueled my passion and desire for equality and diversity.
What was the other
So what were the other ones? Well, the other achievements were going into Welsh Parliament. It was a new assembly, Welsh Assembly, which was then moving to parliamentary processes. And two things, taking forward whole country consultations. I was sort of headhunted into the role and was the director of organisation development in Welsh Government. So that involved, as I say, whole country consultations, leading a bill team through Parliament, which I had never done before, in dual language, Welsh and English. And understanding, if you like, modernising civil service practices and processes, which I was asked to do. So that in itself, if you like, is a transition from up to then my career had been, apart from the early stages in the NHS, moving into civil service and into parliamentary bill processes. And then from there, I went back into Director of Leadership and setting up a leadership agency in Wales.
I'll bring it on to the sort of the Stepping Up programme, which you've been programme manager of. For the listeners that haven't heard of the Stepping Up programme, can you give us a quick overview of what that is?
The Stepping Up programme is a talent pipeline across a whole city and region that consists of diverse individuals from Black, Asian, minority, ethnic, disabled, female professionals, and LGBTQ+. So right across the special characteristics, and really has been developed to be able to have like a talent pipeline for all organisations across all sectors, so that we can change the diversity in top leadership roles across an area, across the city, across the region.
And the one you've been involved with is for the Bristol area. And how is it funded? And who's involved in it?
Well, I have to say this was not my vision. It was the vision of the mayor. We have a black mayor here in Bristol. And his vision was, of course, when you look across the whole area, there are very few diverse faces at the top of organisations. So the mayor, with the deputy mayor, Councillor Asher Craig, set the vision. But it was me who became what we call the architect. So how does you make that happen? And the programme director. So theirs was the vision. But it fell to me and our team, of course, to actually engage with partners right across the sector. So we have Avon and Somerset Police, we have Avon and Somerset Fire, we have all NHS organisations, the universities, local authorities, and interestingly, our corporate partners from FTSE 100 companies to legal companies to banks. So it truly is what I would call an ecosystem of partners coming together to support one vision, one aim, changing diversity across the top of organisations.
I think you mentioned the local community. They provide the support and the infrastructure, the speakers, the venues, etc. And then the companies provide the delegates and they pay for places on this course. Is that
That's right? That's right. Our first cohort was funded by Bristol City Council and West of England Combined Authority. So they have been helping us, if you like, pump prime it. But people who are going on the programme, yes, their employers pay for them. Those who are unemployed, self-employed, or working in not-for-profit, we find sponsorship money for them. So they have a bursary.
So talk to me about cohort one. What's the course? What's it entail? What's the programme entailed? What's expected of them? What do they get out of it? Talk to me a bit more about that.
So the programme, I would say, is multifaceted, and this was built on the experience, I have to say, previously of taking programmes across Wales. So there's a number of elements, of course, as you would expect. There are leadership development modules, there's mentoring, and there's action learning sets. So in the main, they're the key elements. And then there's a sort of transferring all that learning into the workplace. So there's like a stretch assignment, as we call it, so like a project base, which actually helps transfer the learning that's happened off the modules and the action learning sets and the mentoring back into sort of workplace solutions. So like a consultancy assignment. So they're the key areas.
And how long is it, and what's the sort of time commitment?
It's 12 months. The time commitment is around 25 days. So it is quite an ask for employers, but we actually came to that ask in what I would call co-production with our partners. So there was a process of negotiation before we started, and although 25 days is quite a few days, it was agreed that this was probably the best amount of time without looking at secondments to be able to allow individuals to really get the skill uplift.
How many was on cohort 1?
So cohort 1 was just for Black, Asian, minority, ethnic, and we had 46 individuals on cohort 1.
And I know you mentioned there was quite a few mentors as well, within that. What's the sort of...
So we had one-on-one mentors, but the interesting thing about the mentors is they were what I would call offline, so it wasn't from within their own organisation. And I think that was the critical factor, in as much as you have someone who doesn't know you, doesn't understand the culture, but when you're talking with them and they're supporting you in as a mentor, that confidence that is passed across is quite amazing. And it is that external view. So if I just give you an example from our external evaluation, individuals were assessed, where are they in confidence terms at the beginning of the program, and where are they at the end? And it was interesting that at the beginning, the confidence levels were 37%, but by the end, it was 97%.
Wow.
So that is a huge uplift. And I put this down, it's mainly attributable to the mentoring input. Okay, you've got the rest of it, but that confidence lift is quite impressive. And I know our subsequent evaluations are going to look at, does it make a difference the number of mentoring sessions you have? Does it make a difference if it's out of sector? But that lift in confidence has meant that it accelerated the motivation to apply for another role, another career move. And that it shows similar lift ups, if you like. During the program, you've got probably 40% at the start saying, yes, of course, I'll go for another role. And that sort of lifts up into 88% by the end. So you can see how the confidence to apply for a different role and to progress in your career is there. And there's, of course, peer pressures, but it is the key elements of the program that has produced those results, really.
The mentors, are they sort of leaders from the local business community? Or?
Yeah, they're right across the field, of course, but the commercial partners have really stepped up. And so, we get really senior people, partners in big law firms stepping forward. Then we have, across all the other sectors, very senior managers. So, to give their time is quite a big ask, and they give it willingly. So you can imagine that we are going out for mentors, so we take between 50 to 60 participants on every cohort, plus we run our Somali women's program. So at any one time, we have 100 mentors in the city supporting diversity.
Is it cohort 3 you're on at the minute? Or what?
Yeah, cohort 3. We're just recruiting for cohort 4. And so we have 140 applications come through. Wow. This week, I know. So we're in the process of shortlisting those. Normally, as I say, we take between 50 and 60, and that's large by normal comparisons on programs. But like this, we may be able to increase that because just looking at the applications, amazing talent coming through. It's going to be so hard, to decide who should go forward. And I think that's it. It's one thing I would say, great, we're talking about the program, but it's the participants actually who make it a success. And I call it like genie coming out of the bottle. We just release the top and all this talent comes out. It is truly remarkable. And up to now, most have struggled to progress in their career for one reason or other. So that in its main sense is, we've got all the elements of the right program, but it's the participants who are growing and promoting and changing that diversity.
Didn't you say that already from first cohort or the first couple of cohorts that people have already seen results in their career so far? I'm sure there's with a statistic. 60%.
60% odd. And even during this year, which has been the most difficult with COVID and concerns about job, the programme isn't finished, the cohort 3, and yet we're looking at 25% who already made a career move. So it's something, of course, we are unashamedly about career movement. So there is an expectation placed on individuals, but nevertheless, securing promotion is another thing.
When you say career move, can that be internal or external?
Yes. It can be. Today's careers don't necessarily just go up in hierarchy terms, but they tend to be, I use the climbing frame analogy. So there's all sorts of different ways in which you can become a leader. And that's not necessarily what was deemed a traditional route. So, and we're now seeing double career movements. So our cohort 1, one participant who had a legal background took a secondment and now has been appointed head of D&I at a government actuary department. So that's a really senior role. Within 3 years, she made that progression.
Talk to me about then, the programme has received recognition and an award. Talk to me about that.
Fab, as you opened up, we put our story together and the metrics, and I do think that's important. We were successful in getting through to the first stage, and then we won the Diversity and Inclusion Award, CIPD, I should say, and we were really, this is amazing. And then we found that we were overall winners for the whole of the CIPD, which is, I have to say, I think a remarkable achievement. Down to the team, down to the participants. But there are a number of key elements, I think. One is the ecosystem of partners and the breadth and ambition of what we set out to achieve. And 2 is the impact measurement that we have. And 3, I think we moved so swiftly onto a learning platform when COVID hit, because normally we did this face-to-face. I think the judges found that also impressive. We moved from face-to-face to virtual in 3 weeks. It was a bit hairy, I have to say. So those were the key elements. Absolutely delighted to be part of a leading team to take that initiative forward and to be receiving the acknowledgement from CIPD is just, it's a great thing to have personally, but for the Stepping Up programme, really important.
And that recognition has heightened awareness, hasn't it, for what you guys have done, not just in the region but outside of the region. Has that led to conversations with other regions who might be thinking of adopting that? If so, talk to me about that.
So Liverpool is very keen on adopting a similar, of course you have to make it Liverpool-esque rather than Bristol. So it has to reflect, if you like, the vibe of Liverpool and the brand of Liverpool. But I thought this was really interesting. They have a wider ecosystem than we have in Bristol. So Stepping Up have been Everton Football Club and Liverpool Football Club, and they have moved, if you like, centre field to lead the whatever they start to call it. I think it's Step Forward, Step Up rather than Bristol Stepping Up in Liverpool. So follow a similar model, but isn't that interesting to see Premier League Football Club take diversity so seriously and to want to be at the forefront of leading that, along with the Lord Mayor across Liverpool City.
Other regions, interested in other regions?
We got interest, it's sort of coming through. I think a lot of people are sort of, still coping with COVID and all those restrictions. Some interest initially from Birmingham, of course London, and because my company is in Scotland, and my university there, which is Napier. So we're hoping that we will be able to do something similar in Scotland out of Napier University, but probably not till later in the year or maybe even next year.
Yeah, I'm amazed. I think it's absolutely fantastic what you guys have done there. I'm going to bring it back onto you. I'm going to ask the listeners always like to find out about the person And what you've learned. So I'm going to ask you some parts about your career. Give me 3 people who've been most influential to you.
I think the 3 people most influential to me are Councillor Asher Craig, Deputy Mayor here in Bristol. Awesome woman. And it's a very, I think, a sisterhood, if you like. We feel very aligned, different backgrounds, different culture, different ethnicity, but we're so aligned in our values, and I've learned greatly from her, and I hope she from me too. So that's very much, I would call, peer equal influencer in my life. And I wouldn't have ever missed that. It's enriched me. The other key influence was my boss in Welsh government, and that was Anne Lloyd, CB. Amazing woman leader, and she used to challenge me on a regular basis, I have to say. Quite a hard taskmaster, but she did give me very authentic feedback, I have to say, as well as just allowing me to run with a whole range of initiatives, because she had confidence in my ability to do that. It's a very empowering way to lead people and manage people. So I hope I have adopted some of her skills and techniques. And the other person I would say is Professor Richard Boyatzis, who, generously gives his time and has coached me. And he did the original research along with Daniel Goleman on emotional intelligence. And he has now taken, if you like, the original EI into neuroscience, doing sort of amazing CAT scans on brains as the impact of good or bad positive influence in leadership has on people's cognitive ability and well-being. Just astonishing breadth of research and experience. So I feel very fortunate to have had that influence in my life from a professional viewpoint.
As a leader, how do you learn? What personal development do you do?
I learn every day, I have to say. I go, oh, I didn't know that. But I do actively search out, so obviously I'm scanning every day, anything interesting coming up through the news. LinkedIn, I find to be really great to see what other people are doing. They also have some LinkedIn learning. Of course, normally in un-COVID situations, I will be on the international stage talking. And so we'll be learning from co-presenters, other experts in the subject, wherever I might be speaking, and that would range throughout the whole world. So I would say I'm probably still an active learner. I like to take others' viewpoints and reflect and reposition into my take on how I might be able to adopt different learning strategies. And of course, I'm working at a university with lots of bright people. And of course, my daughter, who challenges me regularly in the way she thinks. I think I learn also from the different generations. And of course, I am leading, stepping up. So I learn something from those participants as well as support them. So it's almost like a daily routine, if you like. Every day I'll either find something different about myself and how I react to things, or other people's viewpoints. It really is continuous learning, and that keeps me fresh, keeps me up to date, and stops me certainly from being stale.
Have you made any mistakes in your career?
Yes.
And if so, what advice could you give to others so they don't make the same mistake?
Well, if you made a mistake, I always say just fall on your sword and admit it, right? Because there is something about humility, and we're all human. Rather than try and cover up a mistake, just admit you've made a mistake. Just a little case study. We did have something we were working on for the ministers in Wales, and you have endless editions, and the wrong paper went out under my name on behalf of the Minister. Well, this did not go down very well. And that is really, I have a slight dyslexia, so I don't always notice things like different editions on the bottom of papers. So I hadn't spotted it was the wrong edition going out. So that fell to me. So I just made a formal written apology to everyone, had a bit of a grovel. And it passed over then. And people did say, we were just interested to see how you coped with that. So there is nothing wrong in admitting you made a mistake. And interestingly, the biggest mistakes are also the biggest learning. And, it's like an interview question, isn't it? What have you learned from this and that? Mm. So sometimes something that could be deemed a mistake could also be absolutely important to you in how you move things forward.
That brings us pretty much up to time. Now, if anyone wants to reach out to you, can they reach out to you? And if so, what's the best way of doing that?
You can reach out to me via my website, which is Stepping Up website at www, of course, steppingupbristol.com. There's a contact form there, and that's really the best way to do that. And we do get lots of contact. It's interesting, or you can find me via LinkedIn and send me a message. Either way, absolutely, I will get to responding to you if you want to be in touch. And it's just great to say, it's lovely to see people I've worked with over my career who still keep in touch, say, well, I saw you on LinkedIn, or I saw you in CIPD. And as I say, taking into account this is my fourth career, it's interesting for me still to be reconnecting with those who I may have helped support very early on in their careers. It's very rewarding for me. So if we've met in the past, do reconnect. If you would like to know more about Stepping Up, please connect. If you just feel just like a bit of career advice, then do connect.
That brings us up to time. 25, 30 minutes have just flown past there. So massive thank you to Professor Christine Bamford. I hope the listeners have enjoyed this episode and stay tuned for more episodes.